Today we will discuss Sri Aurobindo's philosophy on the ideal of human unity. Human unity as an ideal has been there for a very long time, but it has remained an ideal. There have been many ideals which have come up on the human horizon in history and have either failed or found not practicable, and they have disappeared. But when an ideal persists again and again, it means that it has the force to actualize itself, and gradually it creates conditions for becoming real. Human unity is one of these age-long ideals which have taken root in the human mind, and despite appearances to the contrary, it is slowly creating conditions for realizing itself. For a long time, at least till the First World War, it looked as if larger and larger aggregations of human societies would be the trend, particularly at the beginning of the century. There were these few empires, the British Empire, the French, the Dutch, the Portuguese, the German, and so on. And each of them was steadily expanding. The most notable was the British Empire, which was so far-flung that it used to be said that the sun never sets on the British Empire, because if it set on the west, there would be always some territory in the east where the sun would be shining. And it was taken for granted that something larger than empire would emerge, and human unity would be realized on that basis. But the First World War, 1914 to 18, broke this pattern. Initially, as a result, the German Empire was broken up, and Turkish Empire was broken. Russian Empire got overthrown by the revolution, and it looked that the age of empires was at an end. The Britishers saw the sign of the times, and they said they no longer spoke of empire but of Commonwealth. They said British Commonwealth. However, by the time the Second World War came, The empires, the commonwealths, they became more and more weak. And at the end of the Second World War, due to various reasons, some historical, some maneuvered, the empires liquidated themselves. The British set the pattern, the Dutch, the French, they followed, and today we have a very large number of nations. Some are still getting free from the British colonial rule. And one wonders, what is going to be the pattern? Sri Aurobindo points out that if you look back in history, real centers of progress and civilization have always been in small congregations of people. In small congregations, real centers of progress means small congregations of people and not large centers. For instance, that congeries of tribes which are now called Israel, they gave rise to a wonderful civilization. Similarly, the small city-states in Greece, they became sources of great movements. And even in places like India, there were small kingdoms and not large empires that germinated a number of progressive movements in different fields of human mind. Even when it describes, we hear of great empires even those days, like the Roman Empire, later on the British Empire. He points out that the focus of power was always in what is called the metropole. London for the British Empire, Paris for the French, Rome for the Holy Roman Empire. They were the real centers, and all the rest was a hinterland from which resources and energies were flowing towards this central place. So it is always in history in a small concentration of wealth, intellect, energies that the political development has taken place. Then what's the secret? On what basis is it going to be? For a long time, the agricultural revolution ruled the roost. There were feudal societies, and everything was organized on agricultural economy. It was followed 300 years ago by industrial revolution, which completely changed the face of the society. It was then that Karl Marx, he came up with his revolutionary theory that all is modern society, the present society, is rests on the exploitation of the wage earner by the moneyed and the propertied classes. And he wove a philosophy called dialectical materialism, which says that matter is everything. Material forces, material energy, manipulation of this is the whole truth. And they exploited the laborers of the world should unite, proletariat should unite and throw out the exploiters who have used religion as the opiate to the people. There is no God, no soul, no consciousness. It is all bunkum to keep the people who are exploited blind and accepting things. In the background, with the background of the evils that had followed from the Industrial Revolution, child labor and the black suited factories, this philosophy appealed to a large number, and people felt, yes, here is something which sounds true. We have all along been deceived. And this evoked response in various countries. Wherever the exploitation was abominable, there it found true strength. But after a while, people began to question, how can it be? Material, physical life is not everything. Even those who have these, they are not happy. We have emotions, they have no economic value. So people felt this is incomplete. The physical, the material is not everything. The secret of life must be somewhere else. And there came a school of thought headed by Bergson, who spoke of what is called élan vital, that is life energy. Wherever life energy is abundant and flows, there is a successful civilization. People who become old, whose energies dry up, they are doomed. Young, virile people who can keep their energies flowing, life energy, they are the heroes, they are the leaders. This struck sympathetic chords in many, and for a while that was accepted as the leading social philosophy. But that too ebbed after some time. And the mind, that those who lead in the mind, mental learning, mental science, mental analysis, mental heritage, they are the true builders of civilizations and history. That came to be accepted somewhere by the beginning of the present century. But the two wars, or the First World War, struck at the very foundations of the Western European civilization and its offshoots in other countries in the East. And that led thinkers to question whether the mental basis for life is enough. And of these thinkers, Arnold Toynbee, the historian, is the foremost. He studied as many as 21 civilizations that have come up in history and analyzed how they sprang up, how they lasted, and how they went under. And he found a common feature that every civilization, as it goes on, throws up many challenges. And if the society meets these challenges successfully, it grows. If it fails in giving the right response and insists on prolonging the past, then it decays. So he gave a philosophy of challenge and response and showed, and he came to a very uncomfortable conclusion that the present civilization, also Western civilization, is doomed. He said they have forsaken their roots in faith, religion, and he did not see any prospect of the Western civilization escaping its crisis, nemesis. That was Arnold Toynbee. So, and a number of writers wrote that we are all at the end of this age. The resources of the earth are being slowly depleted. There was the Club of Rome, consisting of 100 members, governments, leading scientists, philosophers. They brought out a report, limitations on growth. They said all the resources are being depleted, and willy-nilly we are going to our doom. It brought up a lot of controversy, and in their second report they revised their stand somewhat. As against these preachers of doom, there was a school of thought, a very influential school, what is called think tank in California, I believe. His name, he was a fat gentleman. His name is, no, I'll tell you. I'll get the name. Immediately he summoned a powerful opposition to the Club of Rome report, and he said this is all nonsense. We are progressing. If the resources of the earth are depleted, you can trust to human ingenuity and science to open up new resources. So he says the standard of life is going to rise higher and higher. People are going to enjoy more and more by decade and decade. So it is an upward curve that we are going to register, and not. His name was, see, till a few years ago his name used to come very frequently. No, he's a fat man, corpulent.
What is his computers? Is he into computers?
No, I tell you, he is the head. I don't know whether he's alive. His name we don't hear so much now.
Is he a writer?
Particularly.
Aurobindo for
No. He is German name it is.
Not Alvin Toffler.
No, Alvin Toffler, no. No, I tell you, Kunz, could it be Kunz? He is German descent, that, well, we'll get the name.
You think the creator of the word cybernetics.
Cybernetic.
No, he
Starts with.
there were two debating schools in America. Headed by this gentleman, they were called optimists.
What?
Optimists. The others were pessimists.
How about the middle path? Who were they? Buddhists.
Well, that way there is a lot of confused thinking. Kahan, K-A-H-N. H, K-A-H. H is the initial first. Whether it means K-A-H-N. You know, he is the name. Now whether he is Hubert Khan or I don't know what, H. Now, Sri Aurobindo, he looked at the whole problem at the beginning of the First World War itself, somewhere in the middle of the war. And he analyzed the trends of collective political evolution. He says, in the beginning, it was all individual. Men, individuals, they were concerned with their individual welfare and hunting, shooting, things, arranging for themselves. Afterwards, man takes a mate and a small family grows. Then, for sake of safety, each family associates itself with other families, and we have the beginning of a clan, having a kind of common life, common safety, common area for cultivation, side by side and all that. And later, as each clan becomes strong, it goes and occupies the area of a weaker clan, aggrandizement, enlargement. So gradually, from a family, individual, family, clan, it becomes a tribe. And these are all warring tribes. Each tribe develops its own mores, its own deities, its own religion, its own customs. And when they either fight or join, mostly the tribes never join voluntarily, just as you see even today in Africa. They always have to kill each other or fight and absorb each other. And slowly, from tribes, there develops a substantial group of people following common ways of thinking, common ways of functioning, common beliefs, common language, common organization, and we have what are called groups. And as the groups grow, there is development of a group soul. Now, a group soul is a very important concept in Sri Aurobindo's political philosophy. This group soul is not an imaginative concept. It grows into what is called the group genius, the group spirit. And as a number of groups form, they form what is called sub-nations, Welsh, Scotch, and so on. Sub-nations they are called. This is only half the process. When the various sub-nations, either by military conquest or for reasons of common safety against a common enemy, they merge together. We have the nation. So it took a large number of small states in America to form the present United States of America. So the various sub-nations, they merge into a nation. And a nation is the highest living articulate unit, composite unit, developed by evolving nature so far. And in each nation has a soul that really guards, protects and promotes the interests of the societies concerned. Our poets, our thinkers have caught something of this truth, and they have written what is called national anthems. There is the national flag, there is the national symbol. All of them, because they articulate the presence of a national soul, they mean much to each individual citizen. We speak of Uncle Sam, and what is it that, how do you call your Star Spangled Banner? Star Spangled Banner. In England we have John Bull and the Union Jack. In France they have, the tricolor. Tricolor. Yes, three colors. And Marseille. Each Frenchman, however drunk he is, the moment the Marseille is struck, he will immediately get up and stand. You see. And so, these are not what we may call superstitions. There is a truth behind
Why?
it.
Does it happen?
It's a sword. Nation sword.
Well, I don't know why it shows it's not a superstition. Just
Why?
the fact that it happens. I don't know why does that prove that it's not a superstition.
Well,
You mean it's not a myth?
it is not a myth.
And how do you know?
Well, because I say it. I feel it and I say it, so I know it is true.
So you believe it?
It is true for me.
Yeah. Okay.
It is not true for those who are incapable of thinking on those lines. You see?
Well, but that's saying that they're worse a little bit, that they're not able to think.
No, their thinking is in different lines.
Oh, okay.
Thinking may be in different lines. Yes. And one can think on many lines. You understand? Yes.
Sometimes could you say more about that?
Not now. This is not the theme today.
I know, sorry.
That's how there are a large number of nations, each with its national soul, but also with what is called a national ego. Many times the national ego is mistaken for the national soul. A typical instance is of Kaiser's Germany, Hitler's Germany, Mussolini's Italy. Their chauvinistic impulses, ideas of vengeance, ideas of glory, all these are vital manifestations of a people. The real German culture, the real German soul speaks to German music, German science, German literature, various things of the mind and soul. But the military, the Bismarckian legacy, all that speaks of the vital, on the vital level. And that is why twice in one century Germany came to grief, because they followed the call of the national ego and did not wait to listen to the call of the soul. This is one important point to be kept in mind. Now, whether the Britishers, or at any rate the nature itself, tried to take the next step of evolution after the nature level was reached by grouping them into what is called empires. But it did not succeed. Empire always had many fissiparous tendencies. An empire became an artificial unit based on purely political or economic reasons and not on any subtler need. That is why nature has disbanded the various empires, and through the League of Nations, through the United Nations, the various nations are meeting together at the table. Formerly they were meeting only in the battlefield. After the First World War, they have started meeting first at the table, conference table. There is a willingness to settle disputes as far as possible, on basis of agreement. And Aurobindo says that each war, which was a crisis in the political life of humanity, put forward one world body as showing the way for world unification. League of Nations. Well, the League of Nations, it got countered and it was defeated because of certain inherent contradictions. President Roosevelt, Churchill, Stalin and others, they started, I believe in 1943 or 45, the present United Nations, taking care to avoid many of the pitfalls of the League of Nations, but still recognizing the realities of the situation. They had the veto arrangement, and there are many critics who are crying loud that the United Nations has no future, it will go the way of League of Nations. But Aurobindo points out in his Ideal of Human Unity, the postscript chapter, that there is no alternative to the world, to United Nations. If the United Nations goes, another war will be necessary to bring in another world body. So the United Nations is not to be ended but mended. And it has done wonderful work in many specialized fields like environment, habitation, food, health, education. There are as many as 33 services where the United Nations has brought a global strategy, a global outlook. And except in the field of military and politics, it has succeeded in knitting the whole world together. If the world has not come still nearer It is because of political considerations of the superpowers which want to shut their eyes to the existence of the third, what are called the third world powers. And political imperialism having become unfashionable, out of date, there is a subtle economic imperialism, cultural imperialism. Cultural imperialism also is being exposed. But an economic imperialism through multinational corporations and things like that, but they are also being exposed. And it won't be long before the nations realize the need that if they have to survive, they have to unite. All the nuclear build-ups, they are also steps in forcing the nations to realize that if it has to survive nuclear warfare, they have to join. They have to make best of the circumstances.
Is it optimistic what you're saying?
I don't follow.
Is it
I think you can ask questions afterwards. I don't like my thought to be broken.
I'm sorry.
What was I saying?
That the nuclear weapons were forcing them to see.
Yeah. And Sri Aurobindo envisages a kind of loose federation of world nations, not one world state, but a federation of nations which will take a long time to form, but it will begin with a closer association of nations in common areas of interest. Nations will develop a habit of functioning together in areas that concern them, either area-wise or interest-wise, and thus each nation will learn and is learning to go beyond its claims of sovereignty, sacrifice something of its sovereignty in the interest of a common good, and thus will emerge a family of world nations, the ideal of human unity. But it does not mean in his conception one world, one culture, one leader, one society. No. He says variety, unity in variety is the truth of manifestation. So each people, each nation will continue to evolve on its own lines, contributing its special share to the common good and weal, but all collaborating and cooperating to form a world union. It is not a world state. And the last to be influenced and merge will be the political and the military sides of nations. This he expects confidently to take place, and he does not expect, nor does the mother expect, another world war. because everybody realizes that another world war will be a world suicide. Till then, the violent impulses of humanity will find expression in small wars and battles in some small territories, acting as a kind of safety walls for the aggressive spirit of unregenerate humanity. Vietnam, Israel and Arab wars, what is going on in Iran, these are all typical bloodlettings. They do not have more significance. And as the United UNESCO resolution points out, it is now recognized that wars begin not on battlefields but in the minds of men, and it is there that the solution lies. Face-to-face meetings, these emphasize common humanity. There will always be critics that these are all fantasies or over-optimism. But I suppose it always pays to be more optimistic than pessimistic. And it is an occult truth that what we believe, we help to realize. Thus far about the ideal of human unity. I think now questions can follow. You can ask now questions.
When you spoke about sometimes the appearance that a national ego
Yeah.
appears and it can be mistaken for what is really the national soul.
And you mentioned Kaiser's Germany and Muslims Italy. Just from the fact that you stated the name of an individual along with the name of the country, is it usually, do you think, the case that this national ego is tied up with the large ego of an individual who is able to
No.
gather people under his own?
No, I would say the national ego finds articulation through particular individual. Even if, because the whole society, the whole country supported it, even if Hitler was not there, somebody else would have come. It is the country's acceptance of that urge. It finds some leader. Whole of Germany was for Kaiser. Most of Germany was for Hitler. They said, yes, we should do it. We have been wronged. And these Jews are all the cause of all these troubles. So they got terrific surge of enthusiasm. So if Hitler was not there, Goering was there. Goering was not there, Goebbels was there. If Hitler had said at that time, let us stop the war, he would have been shot.
Exactly the same thing for France. Everybody was saying, oh, what about de Gaulle? France was lucky to have de Gaulle. But de Gaulle was France as
Yes.
the expression of
Yes.
resistance in de Gaulle.
Right, right. Exactly.
What does that mean in terms of the individual that allows that to happen? I mean, what is the individual consciousness that needs to happen in order to prevent that?
It can be for good, it can be for bad. For instance, Churchill he symbolized the national soul during the Second World War for England. Same man, he almost led England to disaster in Gallipoli and Turkish campaigns, but he alone articulated and embodied the national soul from the time of Dunkirk till he won the war. But the political sense of the British people is such to be admired that after the war they just threw him out because he was out of date. He said, I have not become the king's first minister to preside over the liquidation of the British Empire. Now, after the war empires are finished, and it was common sense to make friends of the nations, countries which were colonies. Yes?
It runs different similar lines. I'm referring to the point concerning the cooperation or unity of the nations. This also comes to the same point of, for example, the Club of Rome, the individuals are united together, and so I'm just wondering how the unity of individuals from each nation are uniting and recognizing the cosmic or the similarities between themselves, and therefore generalizing that into the larger scale into the nation. So how do you see that unity starting from one individual to another, and then spreading onto the nation at large, which other way around would be policy negotiation based on national policies from one nation to another, and working on a larger scale. So I'm just I'm asking the question of does the individual as such, does that integration and unity starts from one individual to another as such, to the Aurobindo conception, or to more political and economic kind of negotiation between the nations? Or are they not necessarily mutually exclusive either?
In Sri Aurobindo's conception, a nation is as alive, as strong as the individuals constituting it are identified with the true national interests. If there is a gulf between the people and the rulers, it is a truncated nation. Individuals necessarily have to associate themselves together for the national interests, and it is only individuals representing them that can rule. From that point of view, there are many countries where there is a big gulf between the people and the governments, and that is why the United Nations has not yet been able to achieve its goal. That is why some have proposed that we must have not only a General Assembly of Nations, but a General Assembly of peoples of the world. Yes.
Can I ask you if you see something strange in the fact that Cancun, the meeting of Cancun, today or tomorrow, is not under the name of the United Nations? Why? Some countries
Because anything done in United Nations, it will need to have 158 or 160 nations together. But actually the people who can deliver the goods are only about 20. So they know what all the crowd will say. So it is the people who have to give, they have to decide. And actually it is these some superpowers like Russia.
I cannot
But it has a kind of backing up by the United Nations.
What I was going to say now is I was surprised with Tony when I heard Reagan on the television before his departure saying that you cannot promise anything.
Yes, he said private enterprise.
You do nothing.
He said we won't give. Private enterprise has to do it. That's the thing they have taken up, from the beginning. And we do not know. That is why I say the government does not represent the people properly. This government represents certain sections of American society, but not the American people. But not the American people.
Okay. Oh.
I'm a little bit confused. What I'm seeing is that there seems to be a really fine line or a real delicate balance between knowing when there's a real true need. For instance, in the situation with Hitler and the German people. Now, apparently, they really needed a spokesman at that time. Apparently, the country, from what I understand, was not doing very well, and as a whole, the morale was really low. And when Hitler came about, it seemed like it really gave the people a sense of unity and a sense of hope for their future. And now I noticed something real interesting bringing up the Jim Jones cult. Now there was a time when it seemed as though he were also really touching on the people's deep needs. And it seems like for a time the leaders may seem as though they are truly functioning for the people and perhaps touching on a kind of truth that is there for the people. And it seems like it's really a fine line that you don't necessarily know until time reveals to you what's going on. Because it seems like just a really delicate balance. How do you really know when it gets over the line, so to speak? Because sometimes the ambition it keeps mounting, and you could say, is that devotional fervor? Where does the line get drawn?
Can I say my own thinking about that only those two aspects? If you knew very close, not very closely, but closely enough, the work of Jim Jones, once only I entered the church because of healing. When I saw the rabbits of the chicken liver and seeing that was the cancer coming out of the woman, I ran away. It was not a fine line. It was trickery. It was and awful. It was absolutely idiotic. And that was 5 years before the mass suicide. And then Germany, the same thing. Any people going in Germany, they could see the French. I come from France, and we knew something was wrong many years before. We knew it, but people don't want to speak. They don't want to move. They don't care. They don't see it. They turn back. So.
Yeah, I personally never experienced either of those personally. I never,
But for far in literature and science, seemed like
it seems touching.
It was beautiful. It was good. It was not if you put your nose in it.
If you put your nose in it. There are also, well, I have to. I'll mention something that actually brought this up. I was at an ashram the other night, and I was observing people going through what was called a meditation. It was at the ashram that you spoke, and this is just a personal experience.
What was it called?
It was in the ashram. And I experienced during the meditation, people were hissing and grunting and going through all kinds of things. And I got frightened by that. I had a very strange reaction to that. And I've really been giving that a lot of deep thought in the sense of, would these people relate to this as they're praying But to me, it sounds like pigs honking in my, it sounds like animals.
I say something to you about
You know, and I was just like, well, where do you draw the line when some people, express things in different ways, Because this was considered a meditation place, a place of prayer, I perceived, and there's all these grunts and and it was like,
sometimes people are drawn to things because they need to work on that level, or not level like one's higher than another, but on that line, maybe. And maybe the people drawn there needed to work through that stuff, and they're running like animal. Maybe they need to work through anger and sexual stuff, like the people who go to Rajneesh, and it may be just not the place for you. Or else,
well, I felt I didn't belong.
yeah, and also it can tell you the kinds of things that bother you too.
I had a question along a different line. It seems that in addition to there being nation souls, there are religious groups, and that there's a long history of the two getting mixed, whether you look at the Roman Empire or the Islamic religion sweeping all the way as far as Spain. And that issue of the mixing of a nation soul with a religious soul seems to be a particularly volatile situation, particularly given the situation with Israel or the situation with Iran or the desire in other Arab countries to have an Islamic revolution. Can you say something?
It is not
about
a religious soul, it is a religious ego.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm. Yes.
I have a question about, well, it's related to the thing of people having different lines, but I was thinking of, it's actually really personal, in that people who, let's say, call themselves revolutionaries or Marxists,
Yeah.
and how to reach them in terms of their spirituality. Like how, if they're ready to, if you feel, like I feel my brother, he's ready to open up maybe the psychological and the spiritual. He's like a Marxist historian.
Mm.
I was thinking just of playing a tape of this talk as one way. But I don't know, is there a
No,
way to
I think, these confirmed
not
revolutionaries,
necessarily confirmed.
in this sense, in their mind they are fixed,
In the moment.
Yes.
At this moment.
Unless they go through an experience, they will not change. Whatever you may say, they will resist.
Uh-huh.
But if they go through a certain experience, I have known somebody, very high in the communist hierarchy. For instance, in India, he was the top communist leader. But he happened to go to some council in another country where there was an international communist meeting, and there, when he found that the leaders were plotting, regardless of even the benefits of the proletariat by which they swear, they don't really care even for the proletariat, but only for certain ideology. You understand? Not even the people also they are prepared to sacrifice. He got revolted. He said, we are talking in the name of people, getting votes in the name of people, and here we are cutting at the throats of people. So he got disgusted, and that day, since then he has turned a rabid anti-communist and is working against the communists. So an individual experience is
So
necessary.
do you think the communists help certain nations at the level, at the point where they are to get to a certain point at which?
I feel now, for instance, a large number of, there has been a disillusionment in a large number of communists in Europe, because they have seen the Bolshevist Russian people, communists, party communists, in their true colors. And without any experience, opening their eyes, nobody will change. Similarly, there are a lot of people who just don't believe in spiritual things, who just don't believe in God and things. Whatever books you may give them, whatever lectures you may force them to attend, nothing will work. But if they have an experience.
Well, do you think that sometimes their spirituality can express, for example, in being a Marxist? I mean, until they realize that there's something bigger,
If their motivation has been
pure.
genuine, yes,
Okay, great.
that it is for humanity,
Yeah.
that it is unjust, that 5% of the people have all the wealth and others are to slave. If that is moving from that, I respect him and admire that person.
Good, thank you.
Because he is prepared to do a sacrifice
Right.
which I am not prepared to do for my cause.
Uh-huh.
He is prepared to lay down his life.
Right.
I am not.
Uh-huh.
So I admire that person.
Uh-huh.
But if it is a political
Yeah.
strategy to gain power and all that, I will say no, he is dishonest, he is a hypocrite.
You have been waiting for at least 20 minutes.
This is the beginning of class.
There are two questions, and I think they're partially connected. Somewhere in the mother's writings, she said that of the four main asuras or demons, the remaining one that was rampant in the world was falsehood. And this question of political and economic imperialism seems to thrive on falsehood.
Yes.
And I was wondering if you could say something about what forces or what type of work in the world can counter that.
She said that the Lord of nations, the Lord of falsehood, who calls himself the Lord of nations, he is really pushing things round on the political chessboard, bringing about these wars, causing all these calamities, and stifling truth and things. And she feels that politics itself has become 100% falsehood. What was polity? The art of governing oneself, a society, that has become politics. Politics is gerrymandering for power, maneuvering things, utilizing propaganda and all false means of communication. So it is in the measure in which individuals who respect truth and who live truth in their lives, they grow, they associate themselves, that the force of falsehood will decline. So each individual who sees what is to be done, that person must practice in oneself. It is a long way, but millions of years have passed behind. Well, 1,000 years, she says, is not much for the new change to take place.
Yeah, 1,000 years is not too long
For
for
what?
change like we're talking about.
Yeah,
There-
few
there
billion
was-
years was that.
There was an illustration in Sunday's paper
Uh,
because it quoted a doctor who who said that all of the talk that goes around about taking care of the injured in nuclear warfare makes no sense at all. Because first of all, there would be no doctors and there would be no hospitals.
Hospital patient.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And you see, it seems to be it's that kind of direct statement that is missing.
But I think they evolved a new bomb by which the doctors will be dead but the hospitals will be there, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
We won't cut the telephone lines or anything.
About nuclear, like it seems that the nuclear question is one of the big questions of our lifetime. And I was thinking, well, there's a chance that if it happens, maybe that's what, we don't know what's next. I mean, maybe we need to leave the Earth or something?
No, Sri Aurobindo's answer to this question is, God has need for man,
Still.
and man has been evolved for a particular purpose, and things will not be allowed to
Yeah.
destroy man.
What is God? I mean, that's,
Those God is God.
oh, okay. I guess I don't know what it is, or that word.
Well, at your age,
Divine, is it divine?
yes, I am reminded of a saying by Pierre Laval, the Prime Minister of France for a long time. He said, one who is not a socialist before
I know that
19
one, yeah.
has no heart, but one who is a socialist after 21 has no head.
Yeah, I hear that.
So
Except
it,
I was
it
the
is
ages 30
it is the
to 40.
privilege. It is the privilege of youngsters who have no responsibilities to, scoff or say, speak lightly of God and these things. But when they mature, when they assume responsibilities of life and things, they think and speak differently. 10 years hence, you won't speak like that of God.
Oh, I didn't mean disrespect. It was the word.
Yeah.
Because the word's used a lot of different ways.
Yeah, that's right. God is
The
divine.
divine-
Divine as in a personalized form
Yeah.
is God.
When you say personalized form, does that mean our image of
No,
God?
that is as a person. You say either he or she, but really the divine is it.
Yeah.
It is consciousness.
Divine.
Yes. But when we pray to, what can we pray to? We need to have a form. Image. Yes.
Okay, I understand. Yeah. It's just, that sometimes
Yeah.
they ban you about
Yeah.
it.
Yes.
I think you're tired and it's mean to keep
Oh,
questioning
sorry.
you.
No, do
Um,
ask.
I think what we're talking here about, it seems to me there's an overview that it's about false prophets. And, I think you brought up, how can you tell right away? And something about by their fruits you shall know them in the Bible. But I was just wondering, what does Sri, the mother, say about false prophets versus
False
real
prophets always thrive on your lower emotions. They whip up your lower, baser impulses and emotions, and that is why you feel excited, wild, and you are prepared to do anything. They do that. They excite the lower and the baser passions and emotions. The false teacher.
Can I ask you
Yeah.
one more?
Yes, why not?
Do you think that this country with so many millions of people like Russia, they can stay long? They lost complete faith, they don't believe in anything?
No, it's not
People,
true.
I mean,
It is not
states.
true. The bulk of Russian people believe. It is only the party cadre, who are in power, they are suppressing. And even among those who don't believe, there is a great unrest, because the party members, it seems, they have formed a separate hierarchy. So Russia is seething with discontent, and the common people believe in the divine, and they say the churches were never so full as today in Russia. So they are only waiting for the Brezhnev leadership to go, and there are going to be a lot of changes, as changes have started in China. After Mao and Chu Enlai, new changes have come up and they are going to change. Mother had said long ago, in China it will change its character soon. Yeah, she said it will peter out as what is it called, agrarian revolution. Agrarian.
They
Agrarian.
will have an agrarian
Agricultural revolution.
have they already?
Any comfort to you, I think it was about a year ago, I both read and saw a special on TV about the Russian people. In fact, they wouldn't allow any names to be shown of people they were speaking here in a sense. But it was really lovely to see, because they were showing simple people like yourself and myself, and they were saying that they had this idea of the United States the same way we have this idea of Russia. That they're waiting, and that they just went about their daily lives just like we did, and it was really a relief to see. Sometimes I think we forget they're people also, like us, individuals. We think of this big power working, and they had the same kind of fears and concerns and simple families and lives like we do.
It's interesting, when I was in grade school in Yugoslavia, the half of the class was divided into Americans, another half into the Russians, and then we would shoot each other. And one week I would be American, the next week I would be Russian. Instead of our cowboys and Indians, we would be Americans.
That's a good technique.
Could we have an exchange between Russia and America instead of exchange like the exchange student, but exchange politicians?
Exchange politicians.
We don't want them here.
There was
Well, then we learned something. In ours, we learned too over there.
So not tell them
Yes.
apart.
There was a teaching
know.
technique with children of, for them to become more aware of something like that, setting up like for a game, like a sport game, and giving on one team all the strongest, biggest people and more numbers, and on the other team having like lesser and the smaller people, and it was saying that this was about the Vietnam War, I think, saying that these small people won. I wonder what it was, why they, like it made them really think. But, to set up a situation where they had an experience of, the odds, and the fact that what seemed smaller was able to win meant they really must believe in something or be right, and it gave the children an experience of that, so they learned it. I don't know. I guess it was.
There's something that I do sometimes, like in my studies or whatever, when I come across some kind of idea or practice that, especially now right now from the East, it seems like I get to the point of seeing something that seems like, oh, this is so strange, this is so weird. How can people ever really believe in this kind of thing? When my doubts start to surface. And then what I do is I imagine that I'm not, okay, I put myself in the place of, I'm a woman, I'm a student in some country in Asia, and I'm studying Western philosophy and religion, okay? And I come across Plato or Spinoza or Gregory Bateson or somebody, and Gregory Bateson's ideas just seem like, where did they come from? So what I do is kind of a visualization exercise to put myself just halfway across the continent, but doing the same thing that I'm doing here. And I just sometimes can see how somebody would try and study somebody in the West and just not be able to understand it. And it's just sometimes, the Indian thing of put yourself in another person's moccasins for 30 days or whatever so that you can understand what they're really like. And I think so often we have conceptions of other countries as political entities alone, because the news is just politics. We don't have so many conceptions of other countries and other lands as you're saying, as people, as having the national soul, beautiful literature, art, dance, drama. And I think if we expand our knowledge beyond political knowledge, which is, if you listen to one kind of media, if you only avail yourself of one kind of knowledge of the rest of the world, that is what your attitude is going to be composed of, depending on what you expose yourself to. If you expose yourself to the national soul instead of the national ego, you can experience the national soul like that.
It is true. People to people visits and exchanges, they are really the solvent of these misunderstandings and ignorance of each other. For instance, to speak of India and America, for instance, for long there has been great friction, tension between the Indian government and the American governments for their own geopolitical reasons. And Indian people, they don't know anything about the Americans, except these diplomats, consular people who go, they throw their weight about, and they mix only with certain people. They never have contact with real Indian society. Just as our Indian consul people in America have real no contact with American society. They move in the diplomatic consular community and they send unbalanced reports to the home governments. And the next contact was with the American missionaries. American missionaries having plenty of money and wanting to convert people. They have to report to their home church here how many people they have converted, how many heathens they have converted, and accordingly their prestige goes up, their standing goes up. So only those who are interested in exploiting these Americans, they come to them. They will receive their money, they will pretend to be proselytized, but they will continue all their Hindu customs at home, you know. Outwardly they will put on a hat, suit and things like Americans and they will sit with them, and there has been no contact. But recently, after the Second World War, they started Fulbright scholars, you know, on the Ford Foundation money. They are sending young professors, lecturers from America and bringing our professors and lecturers here to teach in the university. That was something of a breakthrough in the academic circles. So our people who came, they admired the American system at the certain levels in certain fields, and they have introduced it in India. And these American professors who have gone to India, they are quite different from the consular people, diplomatic corps, and they have done such good work in the field of culture, in the field of goodwill, meeting other professors, meeting students and all that. They have become very popular. And next is what are called family to family. Number of American women, they are going there and they are staying with Indian families and not in the guest houses arranged by the embassy. So it is family to family, and it has created such a good impression, you know, that after all, human nature, human things, they are all one. The surfaces are on the superficies. And these American women, when they go, they find our women, they meet them, exchange, tell them what American women are doing here. There is a good interchange. So this, it is from people to people, delegations and exchanges. Small, they are more worthwhile. And Indian people have now begun to understand American people much better than through all the propaganda literature, handouts, you know, British, American handouts and all that. No, nobody reads them. Nobody, they say it is propaganda.
Yes.
Nobody reads them. And the American films, they have given such a perverted idea that they think America is nothing except sex and violence. And we have instances in our ashram, school. One day a child of 5 took the penknife from the table and was going about. He said, "No, I want to stab." I said, "But why?" They inquired. Previous night one American movie was shown where a person stabbing somebody else was shown. So the child of 5. In India it is unthinkable. He was going about. He took a butter knife or something from a table and wanted to stab. And they think this is American life.
Well, it's interesting too because Rajneesh now is here, and there is a lot of that. I mean, we have
Yeah.
to work through all that stuff.
Yes. And you know, these people don't have any following in India. 98% of Rajneesh's followers are Westerners. Large number from America. And in India he didn't have followers. He was looked down upon. But India is a bit, broad-minded. They allow all cults, all things to get on. Something like American society. Nobody interferes with anybody. Any crank can start a society here.
Oh, people are saying that there's more anti-Semitism now. It's coming up again internationally. Is that true? You think?
I don't think.
I don't think so.
No.
Here and
It is not a natural, it is not a natural sentiment against the Semitic groups.
mean, some people stirred up.
Yes.
For what purpose?
Political.
I mean, what do they want?
Poli-
they want to
political.
go towards
Political.
Can I say the last thing?
Yes.
Last time, I had the experience to live in many different lands, and in those, but not like the rich people, nothing to do with the family and under the simple people, and anywhere and all over the world. I never went to India yet, I don't know, but all over people are the same.
Yes. Yes.
Absolutely the same. They are big, small, fat, skinny, intelligent, stupid, good, bad, all over. Exactly the same. They don't have the same way of smiling, laughing,
Yeah.
eating, sleeping, snore the same way. They are the same. I don't see any difference.
But still the French and still the French culture and Indian culture. I mean, even in French history and English, there is distinct differences. I mean, I see. Well, for example, I work at a restaurant and I meet people and I can guess. 99% of the time I would guess anybody who's from Europe.
But who can afford
They
to come
have
to there?
particular characteristics.
Yeah,
I mean, I
they're
work with
different.
them.
I
Well,
don't
but
need
I'm saying
that.
that they are the same, but yet they are also different.
Well, the
Well, the
Canada is
ego,
different.
the
They are
national
more than
ego.
Paris, but still,
And it's still a class.
still the same.
Yeah,
Still
well,
the same.
yes, but
But
still
what?
the
Yes.
difference.
There are differences.
Difference of particular and
The important thing are the
The
same.
national
It's
ego.
not important.
And I think it's nice to appreciate the difference. I enjoy
I
Yeah,
think
it's fun.
we can stop
Yeah.
there.